I've been to pretty much every mayoral candidate debate, and I can tell you the early ones were kind of boring. With 15 or 16 candidates, it's really hard to see where each one is coming from. By the time the debates were reduced to 8 candidates, they became much more interesting.
As mayor, what policies or initiatives would you adopt to ensure that artists are compelled to continue their practice in this city?
And telling us how they will keep artists in Calgary will be...
Danny, please don't do it.
Shh, darling. Trust me.
God's sake.
It's for the best.
Danny, please! I would assume a 3-candidate debate would be really compelling and would help Calgarians make up their mind for anyone who's still undecided.
I will consider whatever comes along.
I haven't heard details, so I'm open to discussing that. I'm talking, with my team all the time about what's the best move. Everything changes on a day-to-day basis, so I'm open to hearing the details of that.
I have been challenging them to a 3-way debate for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they continually have said no, or in Ms. Higgins' case has just ignored my challenges. So if they're willing to do it now, I am thrilled. Anytime, any place, a moderator of their choosing, let's show Calgarians their choices.
Why can't we have a debate?
I was in a 3-way conversation yesterday morning on CBC.
Sure.
Was this going to be a 3-way debate here today?
Not now, but I mean, there have been a lot of requests to have a 3-candidate debate, and we can't seem to put one together. And I'm just saying, why not? Well,
schedules are busy. Absolutely, schedules are busy. There have been how many forums? Why are people not coming out to the forums? If they're so wound up about hearing us debate, come on out to the forums.
The forums are limited, though, for the information that gets out. Candidates are pretty much structured to short responses, and frankly there's a lot of background noise there with 12 other candidates in some cases, where I think voters are now focusing on the top 3.
Well, I think what I do know is that my campaign team a couple of days ago was asking the stations to coordinate so that we didn't get barraged with a whole bunch of them. We did ask the stations, the TV stations, the radio stations to work together. The newspapers wanted us to have a debate. I mean, how many debates do we need to go through? We asked for a coordinated response.
I don't think voters care where the debate is, whether it's here, whether it's on television, but I think they do want one. And it sounds like, if you want a debate, but your campaign team is coordinated, where is there a disconnect between what you want and what your campaign team is putting you up for?
No, I wouldn't say there is. We wanted a coordinated response.
That's why this video exists, is because there's no real 3-candidate debate, but we can create one by chopping together a whole bunch of old debates and basically cutting out most of the other candidates.
We respect your candidacy, Mr. Fetch, but regret that we do not wish to hear more about the fact that you're not on the panel.
But I want a 3-way debate, and this is the best I can get.
What is one housing and development issue that you believe City Hall must address if you are elected? Barb Higgins?
I have 7 priorities that I have laid out from the beginning when I got into this race, and priority number 5 is to streamline the planning and development process. And I've spent a lot of time listening to your industry and asking what is the one issue that we need to get to. And because the question is about one thing, the one thing that keeps coming back to me is CPAG. That a lot of you feel that it's good that there's a group, that you get all the different departments together involved in the process, but it gets bogged down. And that this has become a vortex where you put your proposal forward and it spins round and round and everybody gets to weigh in on what's happening. And there's nobody at the top of this process to finally say, okay, enough talk, let's move it forward. And so CPAG is one area that I have been focusing on, and I've talked to Dave Watson. I had a great meeting with Dave Watson. They have a consultant in town right now, Zucker. And I think that there has to be a very clear will at the top that we are losing business in this city because of the process that is underway. There needs to be a very clear direction. We are losing business. We can't afford to do this anymore. We need to streamline the process and move things forward. Time is money, and you are running a business, and we need to make that very clear at City Hall. This is about civic service, not about blocking your process, but about giving you service. One of the people, more later.
Ric McIver?
Thanks, Ken. Thank you for being here today. The one issue that I hear that needs to be addressed is a level playing field. You folks know how to run your business. Our job is to make sure when you put an application in, it's good for the city. If you put in the application well, we need to stamp it approved. If you put it in wrong, we need to stamp it no. And it needs to be objective, and it shouldn't be different depending upon which planner looks at it, and it shouldn't be different depending on if the planner changes 3 times during the process. Our job is to set the policies. You meet the policies, we say yes. You don't, we say no, and we do it in a lot shorter period of time than we're doing right now. And the level playing field also applies to the rooftop risk. We need to get it right with you. When we are putting new infrastructure in for new communities, we need to get it right about how we pay for that, not leaving the taxpayers stuck with a big bill and yet getting the approvals done. An implementation policy is part of that level playing field. We need a real set of rules, rules of engagement going forward, where we've agreed what is in the taxpayer's best interest, what will allow responsible development to go forward. And along with that level playing field, that will help to provide the type of affordability that'll have businesses and homes choosing to be in Calgary, and that ends up being better for all taxpayers too. My vision of the city is to have everybody in the city paying their share of the freight, enjoying their share of the benefits. A level playing field. You need to know, all you got to do is do your job right, and you can get approvals, and you know how to do that. Thanks.
Naheed, Nenshi.
Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for your commitment to this city, and thank you for the work you do every day in building this city. You know what's interesting is all of my colleagues here, including 3 sitting aldermen and 2 former aldermen, have all identified the same issue, which is the issue of red tape and bureaucracy. So clearly we've had the political will to make some positive changes, right? It's much better now than it was 9 years ago, right? I'm not seeing resounding applause. The issue is that it's easy at election time to say these things. It's easy to say them in a room like this. What is hard is to have the political will and the leadership that we need in order to make these changes. And it's about more than just fixing process. It is, as Marcello was telling me at lunch today, it is about major cultural change at the city. You know, I released today my plan to streamline the development process. We've been talking for weeks. We released a website called cutredtape.ca in which we invited Calgarians to share their input on how to do this. We can move forward. But we have to move forward in a way that involves great cultural shift. We need the planners to say, you know, I'm a success when Hopewell or Genstar or Karma or Qualico can start putting up show homes a year after they buy the land, not 3 years or 10 years after they buy the land. And we need the political will and leadership to ask the tough questions, to break down the current system, and to build a system that serves not only your industry, but Calgary much, much better. If you come to the table with me, I will come to the table with you to reduce costs in this business.
Thank you, Naheed. This group has had this question sent to them. The housing and development industry supports responsible city development. That means building up, out, and in. How will you ensure that all types of growth are supported and encouraged?
I'm a strong supporter of the principles in Planet Calgary. Most of you in the room know that about me already. But I also believe that we need to be able to work together in order to make this thing happen. You know, you guys are not the bad guys. City administration are not the bad guys, despite how they act some days. City council also are not the bad guys here. What we need, though, is the ability to have authentic dialogue, authentic discussions, take the partisanship off the table, and talk about what's right for the city. We all share the same goals here. The goals are to build great communities for Calgarians that will make sure that this city is fiscally and environmentally sustainable going forward. Now the question is, how do we do that? And my commitment to you is that if you come to the table with me as mayor and we have honest discussions about the revenue side and the cost of growth piece, my commitment to you is that we'll have honest discussions about the cost side and figuring out ways to take cost out of the system so that you can do your jobs better and more efficiently. And that's really what all this is about, is getting rid of the caricature and really having honest discussions.
I'm wondering if that means we're going to turn Kensington and Cliff Bungalow, Hillhurst, Sunnyside, Marda Loop, we're going to take out all those single-family homes and turn it into high-rise condos. Is that the intention of your mayoralty campaign?
Wouldn't it be fun if I just said yes? I mean, of course not. You know and I know that what we're really talking about with Planet is sensitive increases in density, particularly around transit nodes in the inner city, making it easier for all of you who do inner city development to get that work done, as well as building more complete communities at the fringes, which are easily served by transit, that have a wide variety of housing choice and a wide variety of amenities. And here's the thing, you're doing it already. Hopewell started 10 years ago planning Mahogany, right? Mahogany, Walden, Skyview, these are neighborhoods that are doing what Planet is intending. And we have to be your partners to be able to build these great neighborhoods as well as to sensitively increase density in the inner city. It's the right thing to do. We always are going to need growth. We always are going to need lots of beautiful, wonderful single-family homes like the ones you build, but we have to do it in a way that doesn't saddle our grandchildren with the financial and ecological debt.
In terms of up, out, and in, when we are going up, we are going to, if we're talking about building the high rises, we need to make sure we support that with the amenities that people want to live there. Otherwise, you folks are going to have a bunch of stranded sites that are zoned for high density, and yet nothing will be there. It's about having the amenities that people want to live there. I understand that. I'll work with you to help you and put that in place. It's a matter of making those complete communities. And those communities that are all bedroom communities and no jobs, as redevelopment opportunities come up, we need to get the jobs and we need to get shopping and other things put in there. And out, yes, folks, if we're going to have choice, out has to be part of the package. It has to be responsible. It has to be complete communities. As was mentioned, Mahogany, I'm thinking of Quarry Park and a lot of other communities in the city. And those, if we put that package together, we can actually build the city of the future while not torturing Calgarians of today. We've got to have it so people want to live here. And the best advertising is the people living here and saying, I love my city, you should come here, live here too. We'll do it together. Thanks.
But we also got to do it, Alderman McIver, right? We got to move forward on this stuff. And you spent much of last year calling Planet Calgary social engineering, saying it was going to shoehorn people into homes that they don't want. But we passed it now. So I guess my question to you is, now that we've passed it, do you go back to what you said last spring, or do you go back to what you're saying now? Which Ric McIver is going to come to the table with this industry?
Well, the one that has been consistent about following the 11 sustainability principles, and the first one is create a range of housing opportunities and choices, and not building a city adding 1.2 million people with 0 extra roads. That's the kind of thing that nobody wants, and I always knew it was a bad idea. I still say that today, and we will move towards the future in a way that builds a city that Calgarians want to be in. Because I've been paying attention, I've been completely consistent on this, and that's the way that I'll work with you as mayor. Thank you.
I've heard there's some confusion about whether I support Planet. Yes, I support Planet. What I do not support is ramming it down people's throats overnight. I don't think extremes are good in any part of life, and this is certainly another one of them. I think that it's very important that the city move toward a model of sustainability, but you have to work with the industry and you have to work with the public. This is about balance. This is all about balance. We know we have to change the way that we are growing the city. We know that, but we can't do it overnight, and we don't need to do it overnight. I've heard 2 types of frustration from developers, those who are on the outskirts, those who like to develop the inner city. We need a level playing field. We need to streamline the process, we need clear standards, and then we need to streamline it so decisions get made and we move forward. This is about service and a level playing field. And it's not about us versus them. It's about the community working together with city administration and leaving the politics on the outside of the door.
Ric McIver.
Thank you. And if we're going to get there, we're going to have to talk. It's about trust. And it's about certainty. That's what attracts investment. You know that over the last 9 years, there's been a lot of development issues discussed. We've had lots of discussions. And the best thing that I like to hear from people in this room is, Ric, we don't always agree, but we can trust what you say. That is what we need going forward. Trust and certainty is what will attract investment. Trust and certainty are what will give you and other people in the industry the confidence to keep investing in our city, and then we all win together.
Barb Higgins, what differentiates you from the other candidates?
What differentiates me from the other candidates is, after 25 years as a journalist, I know what questions to ask. I have been spending a lot of time in your industry asking, when did things go wrong? Because I understand that it wasn't always this difficult in this city, and I have found 3 root causes for where things turned around. And I wish that Mr. McIver, who had been on the audit committee for 4 years, had started asking some tough questions. Because it wasn't until Mr. Brian Pincott took over as the chair of that committee that the tough questions started to be asked. And the audit committee became the biggest fiasco in the city of Calgary in years. We needed somebody to ask some tough questions. I'm willing to ask tough questions, and I'm willing to ask, where did things go wrong and how do we make them right? I had a great conversation with Mr. Ray Watkins about this, trying to sort through the difficult information, because you get a lot of different information from people in this industry and you need to get to the core issues.
Thank you, Barb.
Thank you. Well, I'm not applying to run a television station. I'm applying to do something that I have experience at. I'm applying to lead this city, something I've been a very effective part of for the last 9 years. And if you talk about results, if you talk about in Ward 9, some of the best communities that we've worked together on and we've got done, Corey Park, Seton, Mahogany, I can get things done. I have been the one, no one's asked harder questions than I have. I was part of ordering the purchasing audits. That I've always been at the forefront of taking a lead on the difficult situations and never being afraid to stand up and be heard. You need somebody that's been in front of the camera where it's dangerous. You need somebody that actually knows what it's like to be asked the hard questions and have the answers for those. This is no time for on-the-job training, folks. You need some solid experience. You need somebody that knows what a rooftop risk is. You need somebody that knows what's going on and won't spend the first 6 months figuring out what it is that you do. Thank you.
Maybe it's the fact that I don't have a track record. That I don't have a track record on council of 9 years of making things worse. Of 9 years of screaming a lot and never actually getting anything done. And I think that that's the real issue here, because it's not just about asking the right questions, it's about brokering the solutions. It's about finding the compromises, it's about moving forward. Because standing in the back asking what you think are tough questions and not having any answers is as bad as not asking any questions at all. And let's look at that track record. Last week I asked some tough questions. I ended up on the front page of the newspaper about it. Ms. Higgins said it was irresponsible to ask those tough questions. Alderman McIver said I should have been embarrassed for asking questions. That's what I bring to you. I bring to you a combination of expertise and leadership, but the ability to ask the questions and find the solutions. And that, friends, is something that has sadly been in very short supply in this council. And when elected mayor, that is something I offer you. The ability to have tough, grown-up conversations and to come up with solutions that serve us all well.
In one sentence, why they think the arts is so important to Calgary.
I recorded a video which is on my website which speaks to this very issue, because the arts round us out as human beings. The arts teach us how to interact with each other, and the arts teach us how to look at the world with a fresh lens. And I'm a little bit dismayed at people saying that my past experience doesn't prepare me to be mayor. I think that I've continually looked at this city through a fresh perspective, a fresh lens, and I think that's exactly what City Hall needs.
As a kid from Northeast Calgary, I would not be who I am today if I was not part of the Calgary arts community. I've always been there for you. I will always be there for you, and I hope that you'll give me the opportunity to help lead us into a community that really understands the value of what you do.
As somebody who's raised a family in the city, and I reminded you that I had my son involved in the arts the whole way through and supported that, I can tell you that it seems like a short 80 years I get on this earth. Without arts and culture, it would seem a lot longer, and it wouldn't be worth it.
Are you committed to the continuing redevelopment of East Village?
I absolutely believe in the revitalization of the East Village. A couple of weeks ago, I came down here on my own, and I spent some time walking around talking to people. And I heard a lot of excitement from people about what's going on here. And I spoke to some people who are working on the site. I spoke to people who live around here, and there's no question this is a project that needed to happen in Calgary. And what I learned as I was walking around is that there was a lot of community input in this project, that there was a lot of consultation with people who live around here, and I think that's a really important part of the process. This was a really troubled area of our city. And what's really important is the city just didn't turn its back on that.
that you can't just take a troubled area, turn a blind eye. We've got 3 homeless shelters or 3 areas around here where, there's complex issues in this area. And the city made a commitment to move forward in the East Village, take on some of those complex issues, and not just take it on in terms of just cleaning it out, but revitalizing it and making it a vibrant community, because it is mixed use. And I do believe in mixed use areas. We don't want to just put up high rises. We don't want to just stick residential in. We need to get a mixed use kind of vibrancy going on. And that's exactly what's happening in the East Village. So I'm all for this project. And my understanding from the people I talked to is that there are a number of projects that are going to be announced. They are waiting for after the election. So I think you're going to find some exciting things coming up, and I'll leave it at that.
The question was, am I committed to continuing and completing the revitalization of the East Village? The short answer is absolutely yes. But there's a longer answer, folks. 9 years ago, when I first got on council, there was a plan going forward, and actually I was the one that asked for that plan to be talked about in a land committee meeting where we found out there was big problems, and many of you here will remember the East Village scandal. So that is part of the reason why it's taken time. And through that process, a couple things became apparent to me is that we needed to do the city's business in a transparent way, and we also needed to do it in an accountable way and in a way that was in the taxpayer's best interest. Now, rather than going to the private sector, which we should have done at the time, because you have to understand, this is tougher times in Calgary now, but at that time, Calgary was probably the best economy in North America. Calgary had a spot at the confluence of the 2 rivers called the East Village that you would think would be the prime location in the prime city to redevelopment and invite the public sector in. And the city was a major landholder there. 23%, that number, a big percentage anyways, of land in there. And that would have been a perfect time to vend that into somebody privately and have them do it. But instead, council said, no, despite the fact that we have a thriving, successful, profitable development business, we're going to do it ourselves. And we're going to subsidize it with a whole bunch of your tax dollars. And those tax dollars were poured into it. Yes, what's been done, let me tell you this, folks, it's beautiful. And it should be beautiful because you paid for beauty. And a lot of what you paid for beauty should have been done by the private sector, because if they were redeveloping a piece of land, the taxpayer never would have subsidized what's been in here. We would have said to that developer, you put in for the infrastructure and you recover it from the profits on the lift in land value by doing a good job. So all those dollars are gone, and essentially, now even if you do recover the money eventually, it will never be as much as what you put in. So we'll get it done with who's there. Thank you.
I have 2 aunties who live in Murdoch Manor. They've been there for probably about 20 years. And when I talk to them about their life in Murdoch Manor, which is, after all, placed right behind City Hall so that seniors have exposure and the ability to enjoy their city and to be right downtown, they tell me they rarely go outside. That for many, many years, they were too scared to go outside. They had to go to the laundry room in pairs or threes because they never knew who would be there. Because poor seniors who lived in those buildings were subletting their apartments to drug dealers and to prostitutes to do their business. And this happened right outside the back door of City Hall. And our city council argued and talked about the East Village. They've been talking about it at least since 1990 and whether we should redevelop it or not. But they didn't have the will and the heart to make it happen. And I think that's really the issue that we're looking at. And I thought about my aunties when I was asked to sit on the Calgary Downtown Plan, later the Center City Plan, to talk specifically about how to redevelop the East Village. So I've been part of this for a really long time. And as we all know, it's not a blank canvas. It's a canvas that is full of people who live here, full of seniors, full of people that perhaps have less money than others. We can't ignore those people. And if the East Village becomes a playground for the rich with multi-million-dollar condos and terrific jazz clubs and pushes out the fabric of the community that we need, then we've got a very big problem. I have for a long time been advocating for communities that are vibrant, that are mixed, that have all kinds of different people living in them, going about their lives in all kinds of different ways, participating in the community. That's really the basis of why I'm running for mayor. And we need to continue to do that. And it is a partnership between the public sector and the private sector. Look at the west end of downtown, entirely developed by the private sector. There's very little street life. There's very little in the way of amenities. People still need cars, and only rich people can live there. And that's not the kind of world that we need to develop. It's not the kind of community we need to develop. So as your mayor, I will continue to work to make sure that the East Village gets done, but that it also gets done right, and that it becomes a place that all Calgarians can be proud of.
A legitimate run for the mayor will require financial backing. So if you are elected mayor, who's your boss?
I can honestly say that I come to this with, I'm not beholden to anyone. I don't come to this race with any baggage. I don't come to this race with any property that I'm trying to look after or any investors I'm trying to look after. I come to this race because I love the city. And I've developed that love over the years because of the second part of the question, and that is, in my previous career, I already had a relationship with Calgarians. The boss is Calgarians. I could just as easily do what Craig did the first time and just say Calgarians and sit down. But I want to explain why I believe that I can carry forward that promise to follow through on the fact that I do believe that the boss is Calgarian. And that's because I have already established a relationship with this community in terms of what I did for a living, but also in how much I was out into the community. And because of my profile, when I was out on the street, I would never go to the grocery store without someone wanting to approach me and talk to me about the issues of the day. And so I am already used to communicating with people. It's always been a two-way dialogue. A communicator isn't someone who talks. A communicator is someone who listens. And that's what I'm trained at doing, is to listen. And so this is a part of the job. Who's the boss? Calgarians are the boss. And what that means is that you listen. There are some people who believe that being the boss means the orders go down. There are other people, and I am one of them, who believes that the communication and the information has to come up. And that's where you make the decisions, because you have to gather the information first. Calgarians are the boss.
I believe that the job of the mayor of the city is one of a servant, and a servant of the people. But I have to let you know, I don't come here as an empty shell. I come here with faith, with values, with principles. And if you've been watching the way I operate in the last few years on city council, I think many of you will know what they are. And I'll continue to have those principles and those values. But at the end of the day, make no mistake about it, I intend to work for the citizens of Calgary. So to coin a song that I like, I would say for me, it's meet the new boss, same as the old boss. I've been working for the 1.1 million citizens of Calgary for the last 9 years, although there was less when I started. That's who I intend to keep working for. And I can say with some comfort, if you like those values and principles, if you have liked them in the past, you're going to like them in the future, because they're not likely to change. And I hope you do. And I look forward to being your servant, as well as leading the city, because that's the responsibility that comes with. But you can lead the city by serving it, and that is my intention. Thank you.
Of course, everyone is going to say, I work for Calgarians. But like Mr. Lord, I think we do have to look at the track record. And in fact, if the new boss will be the same as the old boss. I'll give you a couple of examples. Just 1 year ago now, the City Council, including Alderman Hawksworth, Alderman McIver, and Alderman Connolly, voted against the will of 18,000 Calgarian volunteers, I was one of them, who helped them develop Planet Calgary. And in a series of last-minute meetings with 2 organizations representing 6 or 7 wealthy developers, they completely changed it in a move that will cost us $2 billion over time. I don't think that was working for the citizens. We have an administration that takes advantage of this. They recently had a vote on secondary suites at council. They passed it unanimously with less than 1 minute of debate, and most of them didn't realize they had just legalized secondary suites in 20% of the lots of the city, because administration didn't tell them what the impact of what they were voting on would be. That's not working for the citizens. I happen to agree with that change, but it's not working for citizens when you don't know what you're actually voting on. I have put forth some rules that I would like to see on campaign finance reform, but importantly, I've also volunteered to abide by those rules in my campaign. I challenged everyone at this table to do it. Not one of them has said yes. I will tell you who gave me money before the election. I will limit the amount of money I raise. I will limit the amount of money I spend. Mr. Lord, in fact, actually wrote on Twitter that he has no interest whatsoever in telling people who gave him money. You know, at the end of the day, we work for Calgarians.
That's not true, by the way.
Check your Twitter feed. We work for people who I ride the bus with every day. We work for people who I teach in the classroom. But we have to actually put in the rules and regulations to make sure that we are not, like this council has been, tempted by the people who give us money or the administration that has its own agenda. And make sure that we have a way to work for Calgarians. Thank you.
Given that you need 7 votes to get anything done on council, please introduce how your background and experience will help you convince 7 other council members to help achieve your key plans.
I've worked in big business all around the world, helping with very, very big problems and helping businesses grow and serve their customers better. I now do 3 things. I teach people how to run nonprofit organizations better at Mount Royal University. I have my own small business with clients around the world. And most important, because I love cities, I've been a civic affairs columnist for the Calgary Herald and CBC Radio. In that context, I go to city council meetings so you don't have to. And you owe me. Because, yes, Alderman Connolly, it is broken. They spend their time on the wrong things. They spend our money very, very badly. The good news is I know the players, I know the people around the table, and I really believe that I have the ability to bring them together to get away from this 9-8-7 partisanship and to help this council help us create that better Calgary we all need. Thank you.
I think this is the most important question of this election. You are asking if the next mayor of Calgary can work with people. That's what this question is about. It's not about can you work with 7 other people. It's can you work with people. And this is exactly where track record has to come in. You can't say, well, if I'm mayor, then I'm going to start getting along with people. You have to take a look at who the track record of who that person is talking. In the newsroom for 21 years, I worked as part of a team. I've worked in radio where you can go out, you can research, you can write the story, you can interview, you can do it all by yourself. I didn't like radio. I like teamwork. Television is about teamwork. You have everybody pulling together for 1 hour, and if one person drops the ball, the show, well, you've seen what happens sometimes, right? It's called a blooper. So television is about teamwork. But I didn't just work on teams within the newsroom, and I was a leader in the newsroom. My goal, personally, was always to get the best out of the people I was working with the reporters, to get the best show on the air. But also, I took my leadership out into the community, and I started to list all of the organizations I've worked with in Calgary. I got up to about 150, and I stopped. 150 agencies that I've worked with as a member of a team in this community. But it doesn't stop there, because I also work with the public in general. I have been a member of this community as a leader and as a participant, as a volunteer, as a member of the Calgary team for 21 years. Thank you.
This is a great question. And the first thing we have to keep track of is the City Council is not a social club. It's a group of people with a job and a responsibility to the City of Calgary. And the most important thing that we have to do when we're getting the people to work together and make decisions is do it on a fact-based approach. That's how you get things done. And the other thing is too, by building trust. And you build trust by dealing with those facts, sharing those facts. That's why accountability is so important. And that's why transparency is so important. Because along with working with council, it's working with 1 million Calgarians and sharing those facts and ideas. Now along the way, I've had tremendous success getting things done. I can tell you I share this with Mr. Burrows, where we did the impossible deal, the annexation with Rocky View. When we went to start on that committee, they said could not get done. We got it done. With the police commission, we worked together. We did a number of things. The Chief Hansen, and again, I share that with Mr. Burrows. On City Council, brought forward motions for the festivals and events policy for council, moving water meters forward, extending the lease at Raid City. Wasn't quite as successful with the Calatrava Bridge, which is why I think I said I have more confidence with people that were against the Calatrava Bridge, because I think that's something. But I worked with everybody. I've supported motions from everybody on council and will continue to. And the other thing is about sharing credit. Jim Stevenson has led council's battle for the airport tunnel, and I've never tried to step in front of him on that. I hear Alderman Connolly talking about all his accomplishments. Yeah, well, they were council's accomplishments, and I'm glad to share them with him. And the things that I just told you that I led, that was all of council. It was all of council. We don't always have to agree, but what's important is not to marginalize those that disagree, and I will do that as I lead the city. Thank you.
Craig Burrows has tossed a chip.
Well, I worked with Ric for 6 years, and what got me frustrated was that we'd all work through a city process to bring services like rec centers, LRT, more police. But you know what? When it came time for the vote, he wasn't there. He voted 9 years against every single budget. Every single budget, people. He wants a 4% tax increase. Alderman McIver, running for alderman, would say no against that because it's actually above the rate of inflation. But his mayor, he's changed. Roadblock to Jim Stevenson. He actually voted against the tunnel. So now he's back, he's supporting the tunnel. That's the flip-flop. The reality is, Ric McIver is the guy that you take for dinner, and he turns around and says, look, I'm going to go and get my wallet, be right back, and he doesn't show up.
Does the city have a responsibility to play a role in preserving heritage sites? And if so, what role?
I do think the city has a role to play, and this is kind of personal for me because I live in a heritage site. I live in a building, I'm not going to say where because, you know, don't want anybody knocking on my door at 3 a.m. Hey, come on, let's party! Not that I wouldn't mind, but I live in a heritage site. And so I think it's really important that we preserve our buildings. The only unfortunate thing is that, you know, the province and the feds have a lot of rules around this. So I'm not going to advocate the city buying up buildings and holding on to them and trying to sell them, and I'm not going to advocate that. But I do think that the city has a role to play in working with business and making it easier for businesses to come in, like we're seeing on Stephen Avenue. Did you see on Global? That there's a company in Calgary that's working to revitalize along Stephen Avenue, right along Art Central, and it's a spectacular plan. It's really exciting. And so I think the city really does need to make it easy for inner city development, which is where our heritage buildings are. And right now, the city in the planning and development process is making it too difficult for developers in the inner city. There are extra layers that they have to go through as opposed to developers on the outskirts of the city. So the city needs to for sure level the playing field, and when it comes to heritage sites, we just need to be, we need to make it very easy for business to protect our heritage sites.
One moment, Oscar.
Oh.
Oscar, you can throw a chip, but you have to wait until Naheed gets a chance to answer.
Yeah, you can keep it.
Wow. Naheed Nenshi.
You know, I'm super happy to answer this question. As many of you know, we've been really running a campaign of ideas and very, very detailed platform statements, cycling and pedestrian infrastructure, on my website, but this one is not. So I'm thrilled to talk about it. We have to preserve our heritage. That's unquestionable. The real hard part becomes what happens when the rubber hits the road on these things. You know, we have a very interesting discussion in the city right now over the fate of the Inglewood Brewery. And we have to determine whether or not there are ways to preserve that important piece of Calgary's heritage while understanding that it is owned by a private individual who has rights as well. And one of the challenges we have so often in this city is we polarize. And we've seen a lot of that in the last 3 years on council, where you can't come together and say, what are our common interests? Is there a way we can preserve that heritage and still let the guy make a return on his investment? And that's really the leadership style that I provide. Ms. Higgins is right. There are some great examples of people doing great stuff. The Neal family, who did Art Central, the building that houses Murrieta's, who are now doing Fashion Central. You know, think about the streetscape of Stephen Avenue, and think about what a wonderful human public space that is. And think about what that would be like if previous councils had not been visionary enough to preserve those sandstone facades. So we need to hold on to our heritage. We need to do it in a way that shows we're proud of our past and we are moving boldly into the future. And as your mayor, I'll help that happen.
How will you make developers of new subdivisions pay the full life cycle costs of their projects?
I had to move the chair back with these size 13s, make sure there's enough room to stand here and do this. You know what? The trick is to actually cut a deal, negotiate in such a way that the one that benefits from the development pays for the development. And that's based on good research. That's based on good research which counts all the costs and which counts all the income from development. And essentially the way you do that is getting good information with a fact-based approach, bringing people on side, and putting the right level of support in place. And it's important for a number of reasons. It is important that we get it right. It's important that we don't charge too little, or the taxpayers have an obligation later. And it's important that we don't charge too much, or we make housing too unaffordable, and we push people out into other communities around Calgary. And when that happens, the taxpayers in the city really lose, because most of those people come into the city every day, use our police, fire, clean water, garbage, you know, all the many parks, all the many services that we provide, and leave their tax dollars behind. So it's very important they get it right. It's very important that you have somebody making these important negotiations with a basis of knowledge they can get it right, and that's why experience is important. That's why someone that's been there and understands the things that will be considered in those calculations are important. And that's why I am the right person, because I have that experience and a track record of knowing these things. Thank you.
I just want to ask a simple, straightforward question. If all your money of campaign donations is coming from the development industry, on whose behalf will you be negotiating a new development agreement?
Do we have more chips? Is that first one to hit the ground, gentlemen? There. Naheed.
He wasn't talking about me. You know, I can't disagree with one thing that Alderman McIver said. The philosophy is correct. But we also have a council that has presided over a $1.5 billion debt just in water and sewer infrastructure, precisely because they were unable to negotiate the right rates with developers. That's the record we're looking at here. And you know something? The developers are not the bad guys. City administration are not the bad guys. We believe in affordability, but we also believe in affordability that does not mortgage our kids and our grandkids to make it affordable today. It has to be affordable over the life cycle of that project. And you know, I sat down with a home builder today and we had this conversation. They're willing to come to the table. I'm willing to come to the table.
I think we do have an issue of urban sprawl. If we continue growing the way we are, we know we have to grow up. We can't do it overnight. I support Planet. We have to work with developers. And someone said it earlier tonight, I think it was Mr. Nenshi, that the developers are ready to work. They know they have to change the way they're operating. And I'm going to add something. I had a conversation with the Chamber of Commerce, and they said that we're losing business to Vancouver and to Toronto. Well, developers would say we're losing business because we're not building single-family homes with great big yards. But people don't move to Vancouver or Toronto. That's a good point. Because they're looking for single-family homes. So let's look at the whole picture.
Any more chips on this question? Yes or no? Do you support a long-term lease for Race City as a track and advanced driving facility in Calgary? Barb Higgins.
Yes, I do, because I believe that a lot of people are staying out of trouble out there. And we're going to push Race City Speedway out of its lease simply because we want to make room for a stormwater sewage system, for basically for landfill.
We'll stop there. Thank you.
So
Naheed Nenshi, the clock has started.
I don't know. I'm not in favor of a $3 million Ric McIver subsidy to one private business. However, I am also not in favor of a bullying city administration that doesn't work with private business to solve the problems and find a new facility and keep motorsports going in this city.
I have to say that there was no $3 million subsidy to Race City. It was actually zero. And the reason is because it was one of the things that I and other members of council negotiated with the administration and Race City. And further to that, I was accused of stiffing somebody for lunch. I might have, I'm not sure. But I do know at the end of every year, I turned in $20,000 to $30,000 on my expenses, and someone else turned in next to zero.
And the clock runs out. Would you extend the city's recycling plan to include apartment buildings and/or organics? If so, why? If not, why not? Barb Higgins.
Absolutely. I know some people like to say that I haven't released any platform, but this was actually one of the first pieces of platform that I announced weeks and weeks and weeks ago, because we know better. We know about recycling. We know better. This isn't even a conversation anymore. And yet we have 93,000 apartments, condos, and townhouses in Calgary that do not have blue box recycling. I'm one of them, and I want my recycling. I had a company come to my door, and for years I paid for a company to come to my door to get my recycling, and that company went out of business about the way the whole city handled the whole situation. And I know that there's a contract in place to prevent business or to prevent the city from getting into this, but the city has to plow ahead. This isn't an option. So I commit to bringing recycling to all homes. I also believe it's time to move in the direction of composting, and I also believe it's time that we start the discussion in terms of commercial and industrial waste recycling. We're behind on this issue, and we need to catapult ourselves ahead.
The blue box recycling works really well, but it's also the most expensive it could possibly be. I want a responsible one. That would leave us more money to do the organics, to do the restaurant garbage, to do the other things that Ms. Higgins rightly said we need to do. Alderman Hawksworth wants everything to be the most expensive, including a chicken pilot project that wasn't needed because we weren't going to do it.
Are you throwing that chip, or you? There goes the chip.
They're so valuable, I have to say, and of course that $20,000 didn't include the dry cleaning he paid for on taxpayer money until people found out. That said, the recycling. The problem here is, as Ms. Higgins has rightly pointed out, that the city really screwed up when they did the contract for the blue bin recycling. They knocked these people out of business, and the deal they made was that they would not go into apartments and condos until, I want to say, 2018. So what Ms. Higgins is telling you is great, we'll do it in the first term, sure. That means breaking a legal contract, probably getting sued, and knocking a whole bunch of private businesses out of business. We have to work with the private operators to figure out a way to get recycling to more people, but it's a complicated issue. We've got to do it, same on composting. Is it 2018?
Because sometimes it's difficult providing specifics in a small brochure or on a website that you want to ensure is not too wordy. This is your chance to provide some detail. This round is called the How Round. We previously visited your websites, and we picked one of your top priorities. Each candidate will be given 30 seconds to tell us exactly how you will plan to accomplish this goal. Please be as specific as possible and avoid giving any background as to why this goal is important. This is the time for details. First question goes to Barb Higgins. You have 30 seconds. Here's the question. On your website, you state that you would improve City Hall by streamlining business processes to make it easier for Calgarians to get business done. If elected, being as specific as possible, how would you ensure that you would achieve this?
Okay, this one, I know we don't have any developers in the crowd, but this one is for developers. This is about streamlining the process at City Hall because we have created an uneven playing field for developers in the inner city as opposed to the outer city. It's something called CPAG, which if you're not a developer, you don't care, but this is a very specific issue that has to do with allowing for inner city growth so that we can move forward with the Planet program and allow for developers to give us that density that we're looking for in the inner city. So it doesn't apply to you, but there it is.
Ric McIver, you're next. On your website, you state that you would redefine the customer service culture at City Hall, if elected. Being as specific as possible, how would you ensure that you achieve this?
This is something that comes from the top. It's a matter of setting the tone in the culture, push it down through the senior administration. We would make sure people know that when you want something done, we want it done now. If an application comes in, you stamp it yes if it's right, you stamp it no if it's wrong, not waiting 8 months, a couple weeks. Look, it's not, we need to be sensitive to what people want, and it is about attitude, and it is about an attitude that starts from the top, and I promise to push that attitude through the entire organization.
Thank you very much. And I recognize it's not easy to fit stuff into 30 seconds. Naheed Nenshi, you're next. On your website, you state that you will make Calgary the best place to start and grow a business. Being as specific as possible, how would you ensure that you achieve this?
Two things. Number one, we have to streamline processes. It's not just about the developers. It's about every small business person in the city who gets stuck in red tape. We've launched a website already called cutredtape.ca where we invite people to share their stories and their methodology for improvement. We have to change the culture so that the planners at the city believe that it is their success if the business succeeds, not it's their success if the business jumps through all the hoops. Number two, we have to attract people to Calgary and keep them here by investing in arts, culture, parks, recreation, and sports.
Does the current system of campaign financing work well? If not, what changes would you favor?
I'm a little embarrassed. And the reason that I'm a little embarrassed is because long before I decided to run, I'm the one who submitted this question to the Civic Camp Forum. I have been fighting for campaign finance reform, transparency, accountability, and openness for many, many years. With the help of some very, very dedicated volunteers and citizens at the Better Calgary campaign, we have been pushing and pushing and pushing for this. We need to continue to push the provincial government for a number of things. And I take some credit, I have to say, for the laws that we now have in place. It used to be the Wild West. But we need stronger limits on contributions. They need to be lower than they are now. We need spending limits. We need to only raise funds in the year of a campaign. We need to, no, don't clap, I got lots more. We need to donate all surpluses, win or lose, to charity, so you start from zero each time. And we need a much better registry of candidates' financial and real estate and so on holdings. Now, I have pledged to run my campaign according to these principles. I promise to disclose my donors, and I am thrilled, I am so happy that Alderman McIver and Mr. Stewart and Mr. Hawksworth have decided to do this as well. Now, Ms. Higgins originally said no. She said it was awkward, wasn't very nice. But she did it too, and she deserves our thanks for that. And I'm thrilled that this is happening. I will also donate any surplus, win or lose, to charity, so I will start from zero, and I will limit my spending. I will not spend more than 60 cents per resident. I've challenged all these other people to come to the table on those other two. None of them have, but I'm hopeful they will.
Game on. Ric McIver has thrown in a chip.
I agree with most of the principles, if not all.
You always have. You always have.
Mr. Nenshi had, and I do, but somehow, though, does protest too much. Actually, he hasn't donated what each, disclosed what each donor gave. Just for the record, I have. It's the first one to do it. It's a clear but important point. And furthermore, I have taken this issue to council 3 or 4 times.
It's true.
Where council has unfortunately buried the thing in committee. Now, some people here would say, well, if you got along with them better, then you would actually bury it in committee too. But you know what? Principles are worth standing alone for when you have to. It's about knowing when to say yes and when to say no.
Thank you, Mr. McIver. Do you support smart growth, specifically mixed land use? If so, why? If not, why not?
This is another one of those issues where it's easy for all of us to agree. And where the difficulty comes in is actually in making it happen. You know, of course, and I've been advocating for this for so long, we need to build complete communities that are walkable, that are livable, that are lovable, that are manageable, where people can walk to the store, where that second, third, and fourth family car is an option, not an absolute necessity. We have to do it. Developers know we have to do it. Council knows we have to do it. Administration knows we have to do it. So we have to ask ourselves the question, why don't we have it? And the reason that we don't have it is because the City Council has consistently lost its nerve. You know about the last-minute deal on Planet that'll increase our taxes by $2 billion over time. We need courage, we need leadership, we need the ability to bring people to the table and move forward to create smart growth.
Ric McIver is in.
Well, unfortunately, I've been forced to bust my colleague. In one breath, he says he supports Planet, and the next breath, he says it's gutted. But I can tell you what, he talked about not having the nerve. There's a couple of communities in my ward, and I'll give Alderman Connolly and Hawksworth credit because they supported this too. Quarry Park has about 8,000 jobs, about 8,000 people. It has grocery stores. It's scheduled to have medical offices, the other things to make it a complete community. We are doing it. We are doing it. You look at Seaton, another great example, happens to be in the ward I represent. You know what, folks? We're making progress. As mayor, I intend to push it further, build the city of the future instead of just catching up on the city of the past with the infrastructure. This is your opportunity to support real leadership in this regard this year, and I'm glad to offer that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think we need to work as a community to create standards, to create a vision, which we have now. We have a vision and how we want to promote growth within the city. We want to grow up. But it doesn't mean that we're going to stop growing out. Okotoks tried something like this with their population cap. And Okotoks is now revisiting that cap because they're realizing that that limits growth. There was an economist in town a couple of days ago, and he talked about you don't want to stop population growth because that's economic growth. And that translates into jobs. So you don't want to stifle any kind of growth. But it's all about balance, and that's where we're talking about Planet tonight, is that we need to balance inner city with outer city growth. So no, I would not support a boundary around the city. We need to be welcoming. Setting a boundary is like saying, don't come here. And we don't want to do that. We need smart growth, intelligence when it comes to this, but we don't want a boundary, no.
Please talk about the one issue you think is the most important and why you have prioritized it ahead of all of the other issues.
Finance. Finance is the key issue. Anything else you want to do that's good has money attached to it. That's why we have to get that under control first. That's why the center of my platform is to make Calgary the economic heart of Canada, and that has everything to do with being affordable for us, for our children, for our grandchildren. And you know what? We're going to, as mayor, I am going to push the administration and work with council, and we will get the tax increase down to 4%. Now, some here would have you believe that's a huge cut. I'm actually talking about 4% more than we spent this year, or more than this year's budget, to be clear. So that is something that we need to do. When we get our house in order, then we will be able to afford arts, culture, recreation facilities. We'll be able to afford to keep people in Calgary. We'll be able to afford to draw business here, which will provide the opportunities for the future. Without your finances in order, folks, nothing else really matters, because all the other wonderful things that we all want to do cost money, and I thank you.
Well, if we have to pick one priority, it has to do with the money. We don't have a choice. We have to pay taxes. I think this has been the biggest issue to hit our city in the last couple of years. We've all watched City Council waste our money on projects we didn't need, the Priest Bridge. We also watched, and I covered, the biggest fiasco in this city in years, the audit fiasco. So they wasted our money in how they spent it on the budget. And then there was the whole audit fiasco. And Mr. McIver was on the audit committee for 4 years. And he talks about trust, he talks about certainty, and he talks about dealing with facts. And I'm curious where those 3 qualities were during the 4 years that he was on the audit committee. It's time to restore trust in our budgeting and our auditing process. We have a great city. We want the arts. We want culture. We want police and fire properly budgeted, not a blank check, but we have to restore trust.
Thank you, Ms.
When we started this campaign, a lot of folks said I was a little bit crazy because I was ready to have grown-up conversations with Calgarians, detailed conversations about issues that really matter. We've been releasing detailed platforms every week for this summer. So one of my volunteers pointed out that any one of our 11 better ideas, any one of them actually has more words in it than Ms. Higgins, Mr. McIver platforms combined. But people are ready for that. And despite the efforts of some like Alderman Hawksworth to distill my complex situations down into meaningless bullet points and then run around on the Twitterverse like that proverbial urban chicken, Calgarians reject that. Calgarians say that they are ready to have real conversations. But you know something? We've sold the ideas. The ideas are good. The ideas are good. A lot of these folks have adopted them. What you need to do starting tonight with your friends, with your neighbors, with your family is ask the question of leadership. Who can get it done? Can you get it done if you've never been to a city council meeting? No. Can you get it done if you've been part of that broken system for so long? No. Thank you for coming. I'm Naheed Nenshi. I humbly ask for your support on October 18th.